Well, hello retro computing enthusiasts. Welcome back to my channel. Mike here. And once again, we're working with my NABU computer. It is the day after the last video where I unboxed it. And we're going to start the hacking in earnest today. Now, my original plan for today was to pull the EEPROM out, copy it, so I have a good copy of it on my computer, and then set it aside somewhere safe. And then we're going to start writing some test code to see what we can get this thing to do. And I was also going to run the code in the EEPROM through a disassembler. Well, being a couple weeks late to the party, it turns out other people have already done that. I don't have to bother with it. I could just download it off the web. So I did, and I've been paging through the disassembled code, looking for bits and pieces that are useful, like things like that will initialize the video display controller and initialize the keyboard controller and all this other good stuff. Because, you know, I could just reuse that code and save me the trouble of having to figure out how to rewrite it. And then hack together a simple monitor program for this thing. But I am going to take the EEPROM out. That is on the agenda for today. It has to go one way or another. Well, let me see if I can get it out. There we go. And I'm going to put it right here in my EEPROM programmer reader. And I'm going to read it off and save a copy of it. But I do want to show you something over here. Now, if you look at the schematics for the NABU, and I have a copy of that. I'll put a link to that below this video in the description. It says that there's a switch or a jumper to go between 4 and 8K EEPROMs. Okay? Well, they're almost telling the truth. Equipment of this vintage, they almost never actually included jumpers. What they had was places on the board where you could cut a trace and solder in a bodge wire. I had this same problem with the Teletext System Master. It says in the manual that it can handle different size EEPROMs just by changing a jumper. Well, there are no jumpers on the board. And it took me a while to figure out, oh, they're on the back of the board. And there are places where you have to cut traces and solder on bodge wires. There's no actual jumpers there. And well, with the NABU, it's the same thing. I'll give you a close-up look at the area on the board I'm talking about. So over here, just to the right of the Z80 processor, as I'm looking at it from the front, next to U55, there is the jumper, as they call it. Well, what it is you'd need to cut that trace there between the 4K and 8K, and you'd have to solder a bodge wire between the 8K and that spot right there. And that's how you would go from 4K to 8K of EEPROM in this machine. And I really hate the fact that a lot of these older machines are like that, because you have to modify them then. And I like to keep the equipment as original as possible. Maybe if I can acquire another NABU, I will start actually making modifications to the hardware. Right now, all I want to modify is the firmware. So I guess I'm stuck with 4K for EEPROM at the moment. But I can do a lot with 4K. I crammed a lot into 2K for the System Master, because that's all it could handle without hardware modifications. So we'll see what I can do. Okay, so I wanna read out the contents of the EEPROM in my NABU and just archive it in case I lose this, or I want to do a little, you know, modification to it and reburn a new one. Apparently, from the reading I've been doing from the people who've already been hacking these things, there's a checksum at the very end. So if I do modify this, I'd have to calculate a new checksum. Let's see. The problem I'm having at the moment is this is a Hitachi HN462732G. And even though I have just updated the firmware on this thing, that is not showing up under my Hitachi EEPROM chips. So let's try Intel, and we'll just try a generic 2732A, because this is actually a G. but I can't find anybody who has a G model of the 2732 in here. So it may or may not read it. What this thing does is it interrogates the chip's part number, which I guess is hardwired into it, and it'll complain a lot of times if it doesn't have the right part number. More so when programming than with reading, though. So maybe we'll get lucky, and it will read it. Ah, looks like it read it. Okay, cool. Let's make sure it's not just garbage data in here. I'll scroll down until I see something that looks NABU-ish. There we go. Please type in channel code, see owner's guide, video failure, RAM failure, sound failure, keyboard failure, adapter failure. Well, adapter failure, that's familiar. We've seen that error message. All right, I don't know if that's showing up for you there, the hex dump of the EEPROM, but there it is. So I will save this so I have it just in case I need to replace it at some point in the future. And then we'll start putting my own firmware in this thing and seeing what we can do. Okay, before I get started actually trying to run my own code on this thing, the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to install a zero insertion force socket in the EEPROM socket. That'll make life a lot easier getting my EEPROMs in and out quickly, one after another, to test things out without having to tug and twist and try to get all of the pins lined up again every time I put it in. Now, speaking of pins, these zero insertion force sockets come with really chunky, short pins on them. They're really made for PC mounting. So what you need to do is you need to solder some straight headers on, like I've done here. And what I will do is I will insert these into the socket, and then we'll have ourselves a zero insertion force socket in the NABU, and I can start writing some test code and see what happens. Okay, the first thing I want to do is make sure I haven't broken anything by inserting the zero insertion force socket here. So let me put the original NABU EEPROM back in, and we'll start her up. That's in there all that good. There's not a lot of board support under the EEPROM. You don't want to put a lot of pressure on the board. See what happens. Ah, there we go. NABU. All right, so it's still working. I haven't broken anything yet. I guess I got to try harder. All right, so time to write a little bit of test code and see what I can get this thing to do. Okay, for my first test, I just want to see if I can initialize the VDP, Video Display Processor, okay? So I've copied, I don't know, a dozen lines of code that look like they have something to do with initializing the VDP. So we'll see what happens when I turn this on now. That's all this is going to do. It's just going to initialize the VDP. Nothing else, okay? Well, look at that. We got something going on there. It looks like it might have come up in text mode. I'm not certain. All right. So we got something going on. Let me see. Okay, that's working. Let me see if I can change the background color. I just got to change one byte in the code, and we'll see if it'll change the background color. That'll make sure I'm tweaking what I think I'm tweaking, and it's working the way I think it's working. Okay, so we had white lines on a green background last time. Let's see what we get this time. I'm thinking the white lines are going to be a different color now. Let's see. Oh yeah, look at that. They are like gray, sort of a dark gray now. Okay, so I can change the foreground and background colors, easy enough. Okay, I need to dive a little bit more into this to see how I can set this up to output text to it. I might play around a little bit more first though, now that I at least know how to get this far. Okay. But yeah, I need to figure out how to initialize the VDP for text and write text to it. And I need to initialize the keyboard, which I don't even have plugged in at the moment, so I can get text from the keyboard to put on the screen. So yeah, that's what I need to do down the road. Okay, let me play around with this a little bit more though. I'm having fun here. Okay, just for the heck of it, I wrote a little program that cycles through all of the 256 different possible combinations of foreground and background colors. 16 foreground and 16 background. And even though I've got a pretty significant time delay built into it before it changes, still the background, since the background is in the lower 4 bits, or the lower nibble of the byte that selects the foreground and background colors, the background is changing too fast to see really. But you can see the foreground color, which is in the upper nibble, the most significant nibble, it's changing a lot slower. So you can see the different background color, or the different foreground colors coming up. So that's kind of neat. That's kind of neat. I'm having fun hacking this thing. I'm having fun playing with it. All right. I might play around with it a little bit more before I call it a day here. I'm going to have to go study the TI 9918 manual and figure out how to get this thing set up for text mode, but I'm not quite done playing yet. Okay, this is my final trick for today. We're still cycling through all the possible foreground and background colors up here, but look what's happening down here with the status lights. Yeah, I'm sending the upper 3 bits of the byte that I'm sending out to the VDP. I'm sending the upper 3 bits of that out to control the status lights, so you can see them counting 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 0. Cool! So I can control the screen to some extent. I need to do some more work on that. I can control the status lights. So, okay, I am making progress considering I've only been at this for a little bit today. And I got to call it quits here because I got to go make dinner shortly because wife's going to be home from work and she's going to be hungry. So, I guess I'll bring this video to an end. This will be your daily dose of NABU hacking. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, give it a like, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to see my future videos. There will be more because, hey, I'm making quick progress with this thing. I got to go review the TI 9918 manual and see how I can get this thing into text mode. I got to figure out how to initialize the keyboard controller and get data from the keyboard, and then we'll have us a TV typewriter, and then we can build up from there into a more usable system. So subscribe to see those future videos. They're coming. And check out my main channel, Omega Geek 64. There's amazing stuff going on over there every day almost, if I do say so myself. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks a lot for watching this one. Bye.